So I can see, Mustafa, Lily, Edwin, the mystical coder, Anite, Jeremiah. Yeah, so let's just kick off with the session already. Basically, what we're looking at today is Bash. We're going to talk about Bash, and yeah, I would give like a brief introduction. I would also explain the reasons why you need to at least know a little bit, about Bash. You don't necessarily need to use Bash all the time, but I think as an engineer, whether you're doing front end or back end, it's quite reasonable that you understand Bash, right? Okay, so basically Bash is referring to a Unix shell, and it's actually a command line language. It's actually started as a shell, right? So the term Bash basically means born again shell. The B stands for the name of the author of the programming language. So yeah, and the idea is you use it to communicate with your operating system, basically, right? The Unix operating system. So you can use Bash. You can use Bash to perform a lot of operations, and it's mostly common across. Yeah, that's the right spelling. Okay, so I'm also taking a look at the chat. So if you have any question, always drop your questions here. So yeah, so if you're a backend guy, working with servers, working with basically Linux servers, you can use Bash. You definitely need to at least know some basics or some basic commands. While coming up with this event, one of the advice I got was, okay, why don't you first introduce the audience to basic command lines, command line, basic commands basically that they would need to use for this type of Bash operations. So what I'm going to be doing is I already came up with a list of basic commands. We have a lot of them. We have a whole lot of them. But I came up with probably about 20 or 30 of them that we'll talk about here. And we would also talk about some various concepts around some of the commands. And I would also teach you how to learn, how to learn about more commands, directly from the terminal. So if you are a Windows user, I would also share a link where you can learn to install additional tools that can, aid you to access Unix, that kind of Unix environment, so that you can also run these commands, right? Because on a Windows machine, you use things like PowerShell, you use things like CMD, which is your command prompt, and you might not be able to execute all the commands, that I'm going to list here. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and I want you to let me know in the chat if you can see my screen. Someone said more like Git shell. Yeah, so I'm sharing my screen right now. Let's do that again. Share. All right, so I want to be sure that you can see my screen. Let me go ahead and reset. Also, let me know if you can see the terminal very well. So like, the text on the terminal. We're going to start from scratch. So I'm going to reset this. All right. So is the font on my terminal clear enough for you? Can you see this very well? All right, nice. Okay, so I can get some comments there already saying they can see it very well. I'm not going to zoom in on this so I can see the, or rather, I'll take the chart to a second screen. All right, I think that's better. Okay, so yeah, so as we proceed, feel free to ask your questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I would attend to the questions immediately before we move into some other things. Another thing I will do right now is to share the link that you can view on your end. So I'm going to paste that in the chat. So this is, yeah, pasting it in the chat. So someone is saying I should still zoom it. Okay. Right. So how about now? Oluwole. How about now? All right. Nice. That's nice. Yeah, so initially I actually turned on my camera so that you get to see who is teaching you. I'm going to give a very quick introduction about myself, but yeah, I don't want the video to be a distraction. So I'm sure you can see me. Basically, my name is Marvelous. I'm the founder at Top Universe, and I'm also a solutions architect at BoltClick. Yeah, so what I do basically, I love, I love working on technical stuff, right? So I love building products, and yeah, over the years, I've actually been opportune to use a lot of tools, a lot of cloud services, a lot of cloud providers, AWS, DigitalOcean, Azure, GCP. So all right. So if you have any questions as we proceed, be it around, let's try to focus our questions on what we're learning. But if you have more questions, around tech and around probably backend servers and all that, feel free to drop it in the chat. And if we have enough time, if we're able to finish on time, I would attend to that. So go ahead and click on the link I shared. You'll find a lot of resources there. So while I explain them one after the other, you can just check. I think maybe I can show you from here. Let me see if I can do that from here. So for those of you that have not seen, check the chat, you'll see the link. But we're actually going to go through some of these basic commands, right? So just look at the working with some basics, and we're going to explain some of them. I did my best to also put in like comments on every single command I will be trying, so that if you don't understand what I talk about, what I say, you can also take a look at it here. All right, so let's avoid the distraction. I'll put off the camera, and yeah, we're good to go. So what's the importance of working with Bash, right? I've seen a lot of people ask this question when I talk about Bash, and they try to reflect to the fact that you don't need to know the Bash, to use to work as a backend engineer, to deploy your stuff, and in a way, that's very correct. That's correct, because you don't necessarily need Bash, to write your JavaScript code. You don't necessarily need Bash to also deploy your projects. Of course, we have tools. You can probably zip up your project. So looking at my screen, let's quickly assume that I have a folder which I'm just going to create from here. We're not using the Bash now. So let's say these are our backend projects, backend project. Let's call it PROJ. So I can basically zip this up and drop this into tools like FileZilla, or tools like Transmit. I have a couple of those tools here as well, and they work well, right? We have Transmit, which is a paid tool. We also have FileZilla, which I think is a free tool. We have a couple of other tools. You can package your backend code or your front-end code to a server, right? Whether you're working with AWS, DigitalOcean, or whatever VPC kind of machine you're using, you can always bundle those things into those machines online. But here is where Bash actually comes into play. Bash is a good tool for things like automation, right? Probably you're trying to put in a bunch of commands that you need to execute while deploying, which I would also explain that further later. If you're trying to perform some simple operations, you might think that working with the GUI, which is basically the display here, is easy or is easier. But if you have a very good experience of working with the terminal, you would understand that learning and using the terminal, which includes working with those Unix commands and learning Bash, would give you a better advantage when working with servers, right? As a cloud engineer, as a backend engineer, in one way or the other, depending on the company you work for, you should at least work with servers, right? Even as a front-end guy, you must, work with servers at some certain point. So whether you're trying to deploy your front-end server-side rendered application, and you don't want to use tools like Netlify and Cloudflare pages and those kind of GitHub pages, you would definitely have to bundle something to the cloud. And that is where the importance of Bash comes in. Another thing you have to consider, when trying to learn Bash is it makes you better and faster at working on or using this kind of commands, right? Using this kind of commands to execute your code. For example, my Node.js application on the cloud, I execute everything via the terminal, and I think another thing you must also consider is when you are working on any cloud application and you want to probably edit your code online, which you might rarely do that, but for some kind of scenarios you want to edit something online, you would have to end up using tools like Vim, right? Call it VI or Vim or Nano. There are multiple tools. You can't open Microsoft Word or VS Code on a cloud except you decide to install GUIs on the cloud, which is not the most reasonable thing to do. But of course, it also depends on your working environment. If that is the preferred way in your company, it is possible. But most times, the preferred way would be to do that directly from the terminal. Okay. All right. So that being said, let's move on to the terminal. This is a sample terminal I have here. I'm currently using a Mac, as you can see. But if you are using a Linux machine like Ubuntu or like Red Hat, you also have your default terminal and your default shell. My default shell being a fish. So we have the fish shell. We'll talk about that. But it's basically a wrapper around the bash shell. So I'm going to just open up. Yeah. So right now I am inside the bash shell. We're going to learn these commands one after the other, and I would explain them until we decide to do some things with those commands, right? So first off, let's go to the Notion page that I've shared with you. You see that the first command I have there is basically this symbol. I'll call the tilde. So looking at this command, you see this command is actually going to take you to the home directory. So what do we refer to as the home directory in your computer? Basically, the home directory is referring to the directory you see when you open your Explorer or your Finder. Looking at my Mac, it takes me down to this folder called Brain, right, where I have all these folders. If you are also using a Linux machine, you would see the same thing, not exactly the same folders, right, but your home directory as well. For those of you using a Windows, I might be confused. If you follow the tutorial, there's a quick tutorial on this Notion link. I think the first thing we have there, how to learn and run Linux commands on a Windows machine. I'm sure you can see it, right? I believe you can see it. So how to learn and run Linux commands on a Windows machine. And in that blog, there are, I think, about 4 ways. There are 4 ways where you can do the same thing. And I would have loved to teach that on this call. The problem with doing that is it's going to take a lot of time, and of course I would have to probably switch to a Windows machine to do that. Then we have kind of left or deviated from the purpose of this this live session. So click on that link, and you should be able to use a bunch of tools. I think I would personally recommend working with Git Bash, or you can also decide to install a Linux machine alongside your machine, your computer. If you are using alongside the operating system you have, which is your Windows, right? If you're using, if you know how to use a virtual machine or a virtual, this kind of virtual software, this kind of virtual tool. Someone is asking, can WSL work on modern operating systems? Yes, right. So I believe you're probably using Windows 11 or Windows 10, if I'm not mistaken. That's for the mystical coder. Yeah, so Windows 11, yes, it can work, and there's also a link on how to do that. So it's a way for you to run the Linux kernel alongside your operating system. So if you're using Windows 11 or Windows 10, I believe you can follow the tutorial and set that up so that you'll be able to execute these commands directly from your PowerShell. But if you're not, 2 major ways is, of course, the first one is you trying to install Ubuntu inside your Ubuntu or any other Linux distribution inside your operating system using tools like VirtualBox, right? And the other option is trying to install it alongside your operating system. We call it partitioning, but you don't necessarily need to do that, right? You can use the VirtualBox, or you can just install a tool like Git Bash. Using Git Bash, you can run some commands. Everything won't work, but most of them that you need to work with servers, right? Most of them would work. All right, so someone is saying, what of using Git Bash? So yeah, I just mentioned that somewhere. Yeah, so Git Bash, you can run some, not all. So let's move down to the command once again. So this command is going to take us down to the home directory. We're already in the home directory. So I'm going to take this off. That is the first command we have there, and yeah, it takes you straight up to the home directory. So the next command is the ls command, and what we're doing right now is basically trying to understand some Linux commands. Then I would show you a couple of other things around Bash, but and yeah, for your information, using tools like Bash, you can write your basic control flow statements. It's a programming language, right? You can write your for loops, your if statements, and all that. And I'm not sure we'll be able to cover all those stuffs, but I will show you some examples, and then we'll have a different session where we can also, talk about that. If you are also looking at this page, probably you might have noticed that we have Top Universe and loves JetBrains. Yeah, so check that out. If you're not on the server, or if you're already on the server, our Discord server, join the server, and you can stand a chance of getting a JetBrains license, for free for the next 6 months. So the instruction is right there. As I proceed. Okay, so yeah. All right, so let me continue. So the next thing I have here is ls, which basically stands for list storage. Yeah, so make sure you click on that link, on the Notion link, to proceed, so you can see these things I'm saying. ls stands for list storage, and ls will basically show you the folders, right? The folders or the files within that particular directory. So what is a directory here? A directory is basically referring to that particular folder that is currently opened. Right, so I am currently in my home folder, right, or the root folder, and these are the folders that we can see under that particular folder. So let me show you from here, so you get a sense of what I'm talking about, right? So as you can see, we have application. I think I should also zoom this in. So we have applications. Okay, so looking at this from here, you also see applications. I hope you can see that well. Okay, yeah. So you can see we have applications here. Then looking at it here, you see we also have applications. All right, so using ls, we're able to list all the items within this folder. There are so many ways to also access additional parameters. Just every command here, or most commands, would have a way to access more details, or to perform more operations using the same command. So it's possible for you to add, like ls -a, where it just gives you a direct list, including the dot files. We'll talk about the dot files later, but basically they are just, mostly configuration files, right? So you see, I have a bunch of them. MongoDB. Every computer has, dot files. Every laptop or desktop system or operating system has these dot files. I think you have to configure it at times to make it show up, right? And that is up to you, to make it show up. We can also try ls. Okay, so -l is giving you those files, including what we call the permissions, right? So these are the permissions, and yeah. So I also would come up with an event, or like a program where I will teach you this specifically, because a lot of people are confused when it comes to working with file permissions. It's not an easy, thing to know. But when you know it, it will definitely pay off, right? So we'll talk about file permissions because basically every single item in a Linux machine or a Unix machine is basically a file, right? So we'll explain that also in a later time. So the next one we have is cd. I'm going to clear this using the clear command. This would clear the screen, so we can kick off from here. But of course, the history is still there when I scroll, right? So even though it cleared the screen, it only pushed those stuff to the top, and ensure that our screen here is not cluttered with any command or text. So we can always use that command, and I will show you some other tools, or some other commands that you can use to probably clear and reset the terminal. So let's continue. We have the cd command, which stands for change directory. As I'm explaining, drop your questions if you have any in the chat. So change directory is used when you want to change from the current directory that you found yourself in to a different directory. So looking at this again with ls, you see we have the desktop, right? So this is desktop. So let's assume we want to navigate to the desktop. All you have to do is say cd desktop, right? And yeah, you can also use your tab key to give you auto completion. I'm not setting it to work for everybody, but you can try that. So, or you can just type it out, desktop. So I hit the enter key and I am currently on my desktop. How am I sure I'm on my desktop? I can just use the LX again, and I have all the files on my desktop, right? So I have like these files you're seeing here, active dev. I can navigate to multiple folders using the CD command. So let's try it again. CD. Let's go down to most of the source code I've written, for. So if I press ls again, you see I have a lot of stuffs around. These are folders, right? These are folders, and then we'll get to show you how to know if something is a folder or a file, and also the type of file. There's a command for that. So basically, the CD is used to change from one folder to another, right? Okay. So we also have we also have the CD dash. This is your hyphen, and using this particular command, this will take you to the previous folder, which is the desktop, right? So this took us back, one step backward, to the desktop folder. We navigated from desktop to source code, and entering the CD hyphen takes us back to desktop, right? Okay, so you can also follow up with these commands on the link I shared with you. All right. Okay, so the next one we'll look at here is CD with this. Maybe I'm not getting this correctly. So I think it's called the tilde sign or symbol. If I'm making a mistake, please correct me in the chat. So using this command, this will take us directly to our root folder. Of course, you can always go back by also pressing just CD. It takes us back again, to this folder. So let's assume I am currently in the desktop. I'm currently on the desktop, and maybe source code once again, right? I can just press CD, and it takes me back to the home directory as well. So we discover that multiple commands are able to do the same thing, right? And you might be asking yourself, okay, so why do I need to learn this? What's the importance of learning this? Now, as I said earlier, when you are working on a server, like a virtual server deployed on the cloud, you definitely need to. This is how you access that particular server. This is how you move from one directory to another. When you want to create a directory or a folder, when I say directory, I mean folder. You have to create that folder directly from the terminal, right? So someone is saying, how do you navigate to a folder with a name like this? Okay, yeah. So because of the space, you can actually use the backward and forward slash depending on the operating system. So I think working with PowerShell, you might be using the forward slash. We're working with a Unix machine, you might be using the backward slash. But I'll show you an example now. So let's look at the let's quickly resolve that. So I'm going to move down to my desktop, and I believe I have a folder with a space. Okay, so as you can see, I have product design. Okay, so someone is saying, please send. Yeah. Okay, someone is saying I should please send the link again, and I'm going to paste that in the chat. All right, so for those of you that are just joining, probably you did not get that link. Maybe someone can assist me with this. Copy this already, and if anyone asks the same question, go ahead and paste this in the chat again, okay? All right, so I have a folder here called product design. So let me show you what would happen when I say CD product design. So you see what happens, right? So this is how I can access this. And I am currently, if I click on enter, I am currently inside that folder, right? I think likewise, so let's try this again, CD, and I'm going to say products, and I doubt if this would work, but let's see. Of course, because this is already trying to refer to a file. So yeah, so you definitely need to access this using the backward and the forward slash, just like this. Now, it's not advisable. People do this, right? This is a product design folder. That is basically why I probably created this folder this way. But your engineering folders, your folders that would hold your code, please don't do this, right? I mean, there's nothing saying it's a wrong way to create a folder. But I think it will be difficult for you to work with your relative paths when working with things like this. So always make sure you use an underscore. So when you look at the code related folders I have here or directories, I use hyphen, I use underscores, right? I use underscore for my open source projects. My source code as well, I use hyphen. I think it's better if you even just stick to working with underscore. Okay. All right. So let's proceed. So someone said you use CD minus and then CD dot dot. Oh yeah. Basically, they do the same thing. I would say I am personally very used to cd dot dot. So yeah, they do the same thing. Let's proceed. I'm going to clear this again. All right. So that is for changing directory. There are more to these commands, and I will show you how to access. So I will show you how to, yes, in Ubuntu, cd dot dot takes to the previous directory. Cd hyphen would also do that as well. So there are more to these commands, and I will show you how to, access what to call a man page, which is a manual page, or the help command. With the help command, you can see details about that particular command and learn. Right, that's the same way that I learned, this command. That's the same way that most people learn this command, right? You understand the command first, you know the functionality, then you use the man page or the help page to get more details about this command with all the attributes, which is this dash this dash that. Yeah, so someone is even dropping an example there, cd dash dash help, to give you the details on the cd command. But if you use the man page, it gives you even more details, right? Kind of like a complete manual about these things. Okay, so yeah, so there's something called the push D and the pop D. I'm just going to explain it in a very simple fashion. It's people find it very difficult to understand the push D and the pop D. So basically, what you're doing is you're pushing a directory to what we call a stack. And a stack is basically like a container. So you have a container where you can put in footballs, for example. So when you put in a football, it goes down to the end of the container. You put in the second football, of course, it's always going to probably is sitting at the top of the previous one. So we're looking at a stack that can, arrange items, in different order or layers, right? So you put in the first one, the second one, the third one, and when you're bringing out the items, you're going to bring out items, it's going to come out like, from the other end, right? So you put something in stack, you take it off from the stack. We also have a concept called the queue, which I would not want to go deep into that here. But basically, what we're doing right now is we're putting directories into a stack, and we can easily go back to those directories when we pop the stack, or when we use the pop D command. So it works hand in hand. So for example, instead of using, let's go back to the roots. I'm going to clear once again. Instead of using the CD to go down to desktop, or let's say we are currently in the desktop, so let's use push D, and let's go down to the desktop, right? So this is the desktop. Let's also use, you see what happens here? We've currently added this item to a stack. So someone is drawing on my screen. Bendex, can you just stop that, please? So don't do that. I think maybe the host can also disable that permission, or probably kick off anybody doing that on my screen. Okay. Yeah. So let's proceed. So now I use the push D. I'm going to use push D again, and this time I'm going to move down to a different folder. So let's say active dev, for example. So now you see we have desktop, we have active dev. So this is desktop, active dev, and this is desktop. So we have two items in this stack. So if I say pop D, right, it takes me back to the desktop. I am currently in active dev. Writing pop D takes me back to the previous directory, right, which is this directory. So we push some items into the stack, and then we pop those items, by taking us a step backward. So the reason why we do this at times is, you are moving from a particular folder to a different folder, and you don't know how to probably keep track of. Yeah, can I hold on, please? So you don't know how to keep track of. So someone is saying you typed in bash, and it says desktop, no such file. Yeah, that's because there is no such file or directory. So use the ls command first. Use the ls command, and it will show you where you can go. I think you are probably not in the position where you can type in desktop. You get that, Shay? So use the ls, then you see the folders that you can navigate to. Okay, all right. So someone is saying, what's the stack? All right. So okay, so I don't want to go into details on that, but I'm going to give a quick overview on what a stack is. So basically, it's a computer science concept, right? So you bring in items into a container, and when you are taking items out of that container, you are going to pick those items of course, from the top of, you have items like 1, 2, 3, 4 entering that particular container. Taking out items is going to come up from the top. So like the last item that went in would be the first to go out, right? So we refer to this as last in first out. In computer science. But it's the same concept with having putting items into a container, taking them off. The last item that went in, has to go out. And you can use this. This is actually like data structure. You can use this to implement algorithms. And I don't want to go deep into that right here, but I believe that explanation should work, right? For those of you, I think who asked that question, Ogundare Femi. I hope that little explanation gave you kind of like the like an overview of what that means, right? If you have more questions about stacks and queries, and we have a bunch of data structures, just come on the Discord server, ask me a question. And yeah, so someone said the push deal worked. Okay, great. All right, so I believe you understand that. So if you have any other question around the pop D and the push D, ask a question in the chat. All right, so the next one we have here is file, the file command. Basically, what you would do with the file command is to tell you the type of file. It gives you the details and the properties of the file. So I'm going to check what we have here on the desktop. So we have a file. This is a PDF file. We also have folders. I'm going to use the file command to like check the detail of this beneficiaries.csv. So let's just say file beneficiaries.csv. So this is telling us that beneficiaries.csv is a CSV text, right? So we can also do the same thing, file, let's try the JetBrains. So this is telling us that this particular file is a PDF document, and of course it's giving us the version of that document, and it's telling us, the content, which is one page, right? Yeah, we can also use that on a folder. So when you're working on a Linux machine or maybe on the cloud, sometimes you might mistakenly try to access files, thinking they are folders. So probably you might have made that mistake. You might have made that mistake as well, where you try to use CD on a file. So for example, I use CD and I say JetBrains. You see, it's going to tell us CD. This is not a directory, right? I'm sure you can see that this is not a directory. So that's the error we get. And it has done a very good job of telling us like you're trying to access, you're trying to use the change directory command. Unfortunately, you're not using it on a directory. Instead, you're using it on a file, and it won't work, right? So, but if you want to always test before accessing these things, you can just say file and then put in the name of that file. So you see, I use the tab key, for auto completion. This would work on any Linux or Mac operating system. I believe it should also work on a Windows machine. I've explored the command prompt in the past, and I think it should work. All right, so we have a question in the chat, and this Samuel is saying, when opening VS Code with Bash or Terminal, okay? My question is, why does code.open only current directories in VS Code, and code.dot opens all folders present in the folder? Okay, so your question is why? Okay. So basically, you need to understand. I think first off, let me clarify. Probably the question is a bit confusing here, but let me try to explain based on what I think you're referring to. So every process has a process name, right? So an example of a process is your your VS Code. Of course, it's a process, and the process name is code, right? You have Google Chrome, and the process name is Chrome. There are more things. If you are probably looking for the process name or the process ID, there are commands you can use for checking those stuff. An example is htop. We're not doing that. We're not covering this on this training, but htop will give you like a visualization where you can see some of those process names. Let me take that off so that should not confuse anybody. But when you use the code and the dot, this would open that particular location, because the dot basically in your command here is referring to that current directory, right? Whenever you're running a command with this dot assigned to it, you are referring to that particular directory. It's just similar to trying to probably we're trying to open active dev, right? This is going to open up active dev. The dot here is going to open the entire desktop, right? So the entire desktop is going to be loaded into VS Code because we are currently in the desktop, right? So what now you are saying dot dot. So if you're saying dot dot, this is going to kind of like uh, first off, I won't even advise you use your you use that kind of command, because what that is opening is the step backward. Not necessarily the current folder or the next folder, right? You are going, so you are still using the step backward the same way you do cd dot dot, right? So because I think okay, so someone is saying, I think he's talking about CD dot dot and say, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, but the question somehow it's because it's asking why. Okay, so the why there, I would say, is because the dot that you are referring to is, referring to that particular directory. Dot dot is taking you a step backward. So, which means if I currently open cd active dev, right? And I say code dot dot, what is this going to open? This is basically going to open our desktop. So when you watch, just watch here and see, this opens up our desktop. So I hope you get my point here, Samuel. All right, so let me proceed. All right, good. Okay, so let's proceed to the next one. So we'll talk about file, and the next one here will be locate, right? So basically, the locate command is used to okay, yeah. Thank you, Samuel. The locate command is used to locate your files, right? So I think there's someone in the waiting room. Please, yeah, okay, admitted. All right. So the locate command is used to locate files. Basically, this command would not probably work well on your Windows machine or maybe even on a Mac, right? Because the locate command actually has this database, attached to it, and the idea is that when you update it regularly, it's able to keep track of the location of those files. So let's see. I'm back to the roots. So I'm going to take this off. All right. So let's go back to our desktop. Okay, and I'm going to clear this. All right. So I'm going to run the locate command, and so you see it's telling us, okay, locate this the default. Oh wow. Okay, so we have a default database that of course can be updated, but I doubt if this would update that database. The idea of the locate in the first place is that it has this database on your system, and it keeps track of a lot of like files, right? Everything in your Linux machine is a file, so we're able to use this to locate. For example, I'm going to try to locate this. So let's just copy that name, paste it here. So let's see what we get, right? So this is not giving us any response. Basically, I'm sure that the database here is not updated. For those of you using a Linux machine, you can update this using sudo update db. I use the locate command, when I'm working in the cloud, because I usually use the Ubuntu or the Amazon machine, which I think we refer to as the AMI, right? Amazon Linux or Amazon machine instance. So I usually use this Amazon machine, and I definitely can use the locate command there. I'm sure if I use the update db, this is not going to work. Let's go back to bash and try it again. So I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to say update db. Okay, so what if I say sudo? We'll get to talking about sudo, right? We're not there yet. So update db. Okay, then I put in my password. All right, so update db not okay. So command not found. If you're using a Linux machine, you can do this. You can update your db, and then you can use the locate command to locate your files and the directories, of course. So I think I also dropped this in. Yeah, so there's a comment right at the top of every command, and you can make do of those comments to understand at least the basic functionality of the locate command. Then you can also use the help page or the man page to read more about that. All right, so what is the which command? The which command is basically used to locate other commands. So for example, I have Node.js, I have Python installed. Let's use the which command to check if I have Python installed. So I'm going to say which Python, and yeah, we don't get any feedback here. Let's try Python 3 because that's what I use, and I changed my alias already to point to Python 3. So searching for Python 3, you see it's able to give us the location, the version, the folder, right? So we can also search for a bunch of other commands. I usually use a command called cargo, which basically is the package manager for writing Rust. So we're not talking about that, but I want to check if that is installed, right? So let us check if I have that installed by running which, and let's see cargo. So you see we have cargo installed. You can always use this to verify, right? So we can say which node, right? So let's say which node. So you see I am currently I have node 14, and this is installed via NVM because I can always switch, the version of my node. So the which command would always give you, the location, and always tell you that, yeah, this is installed and this is the location. Okay, so we're using the which command to search for other commands just to see if they are available. I hope you understand that. All right, so the next, these are some simple commands that can be helpful. We have the, let's clear our screen. We have the cal, which is calendar, right? CAL. So the calendar command will basically give you a calendar. This can be helpful, of course. It's not helping you in a technical way, right? It's just informational. So probably you're working on a Linux machine. You can't check the time, on the Linux machine if you're probably using a box, this kind of Linux box where you don't have access to your own GUI environment. So I've experienced, working on a huge machine for a micro data center. I would refer to it as that because it was not so. This NCDC, if I'm not mistaken, there was a time I was tasked with updating, and I hope it's NCDC or NECO, but I can't remember. Back then I was working at Abuja, and they brought in this box, this big, about I think about more than more than 20 or 30 terabytes of media machine. Had about probably 64 gig or more. So they were using it as an internal server, right? So they did not. They are deploying on that server, and when you access their website and their services, you are currently going to hit that server. In the physical location. So I was tasked with doing some setup, using Docker and Kubernetes, and then I had that first-hand experience of working on the machine, and I had no access to any GUI, right? So you had to do everything from the terminal. So imagine you are in a locked room where you have to do these things, and you also want to know, okay, what is today's date or what is the time? You can always use this informational type of commands, right? So this is Cal showing us that today is the 31st. We also have dates, right? And I think that is what we have next on the list, right? So we have dates. So dates is going to tell us, okay, Sunday, July 31st, 16:48:20 West African time. So these are just informational commands that will definitely be of help, right? In one way or the other. So we have cal, we have dates, we also have history. So basically, the history command would show you some of the commands you've run, like the top, I think it's the top 1,000 commands you've run since you opened the environment. So if we take a good look at this, I think this is showing me some of the commands that I ran probably yesterday on a Linux machine, I guess. So so it gives you the top 1,000. I believe it's possible to probably update or set, based on the Unix configuration to extend this. I've not done that before, but if you can do that, also let me know. I've not really explored that option. So we also have the what is command, right? So the what is command would basically so the what is command would basically tell you what a command is meant to do, right? So let's assume we say what is cd, this would load up, oh, come on. All right, so it's giving us a bunch of details here, right? And we can always scroll, to see more details about the cd command. So as I told you earlier, these commands have a bunch of stuff. So I'll probably take this off. Let's clear this. Let's search for something like what is Python 3. Let's see. So this is easier to relate with. So Python 3 is an interpreted, interactive, object-oriented programming language. This is based on what they have in the man page. Right now, we're looking at the help commands. These are the series of help commands we have. The first one being what is, right? So we can say what is node, right? What is node? So you can also check out what is it's already giving you a bunch of details about Node, and there are more. I'm going to stop this as well. I'm stopping this command using Control C, right? So Control C just to stop that command. I'm going to clear this again, and I will say what is npm. For those of you that know what npm is, you see it's giving you details about npm, npm being npm bugs, a couple of things that you probably don't know exist, in npm, and there is a better way to also access, this help page. So let me, quit. Yeah, so I'm going to clear this right now, and that is what is, that is the what is command. So we also have the help command. So simply typing the help command will give you a bunch of things here. I think someone is trying to get in again. So the help command is telling us, okay, we're currently running GNU Bash version 3.7, with the release details. And it says, okay, these shell commands are defined internally. Then you can type the help to see this list. Okay, so I'm going to try a sample command such as node help. Sorry, that should be hyphen help. Okay, so the node hyphen help with a double hyphen help would give you details about node, and I also think you can try help. Let's see if that works. Nope, that doesn't work. Okay, so you always have to append the help parameter or argument. Argument to see the details. So for example, npm help. So it gives you, and this is a very good way to learn. Trust me. I remember working with what is the name of this tool again? So there was a time, I think it was Wrangler. Yes. So there's a tool called Wrangler, and the Wrangler is a command line tool that you can use. It's a Cloudflare command line tool, for deploying your web pages and also some serverless functions on the edge. So the first time I installed Wrangler, I was finding it a bit difficult, and I did not, I did not want to look at their documentation because I believe I could just, sort things out using the help. I think I still have Wrangler installed here. I'm not sure, but let's see. So Wrangler, okay, not found. Wrangler, okay. Okay, so Wrangler not found. Okay, so but you can just type, Wrangler, then the help. I also have Cargo installed, the help. So you see, it gives me like details about probably the commands to run. So for example, we can say cargo list, cargo explain, cargo version, cargo quit, cargo color. So you see, we have a bunch of this, cargo clean, cargo build, cargo run, cargo test. So you can also do the same for item 3. Let's say help. So it says this is okay. So you see, we have like the help page. This is looking bulky, and you might be saying this is too much or this is too difficult. Trust me, these are just details teaching you, right? I mean, there's nothing so strange, about having it's just like a documentation, embedded on that command line tool, right? Python itself has, the Python command line tool, or the Python 3 command line tool. So, by typing Python 3 and the appending help, you can get, you can even search for more details, around specific inbuilt methods, right? We'll get to that very soon as well. So now we've tried out what is help, and one of the best options is the man page, right? The man page, which also stands for manual. So this gives you a manual of that particular command. So when I say man, and I probably search for something like let's say node, right? So you see, it gives you a clean interface to read about it. So we have Node is a server-side JavaScript runtime, and it breaks them down into synopsis, description, options. So you see, we have the description. Node is a set of libraries for JavaScript, which allows it to be used outside of the browser, and it's primarily focused on creating simple, easy to use network clients and servers. So you see, when you press the enter key, you can continue reading this. It has a lot of details as you continue to read through. There are other ways to also make the reading experience better using the more and less commands. We will get there soon. So this is the man page. Probably every command line interface or tool, every command line tool, such as Node, such as Python, cargo and some of these options I've mentioned, and even some options that that I have not mentioned here at all. Would probably have a man page, right? I think it's a standard way of doing it. So you would probably get a man page that would give the description of that particular command. I find myself using the man page often because it's detailed and it's clean, So you can also check it out as well. These commands are on the Notion page. So if you don't have that page yet, probably someone should share it again on the chat. All right, so that is the man page. We also have a command called apropos. I mean, I really, the first time I used this command, it actually sounded like one of those commands from Harry Potter. I'm not going to call it a magic spell. I think it's also a command, right? So if you have watched Harry Potter, I think that was the way I felt as well. So let's say Python 3. I think the question you will probably ask me is, what is the full meaning of apropos? I personally don't know, but I'm going to do a quick Google search now. So that we can, let's see, what does that mean? Apropos command. Okay, so I think it's just a random term because okay, so it's a Latin term, propositum, which means about. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so it's a Latin term that means about, and that is a smart smart naming convention. Okay, so it means about. Yeah, it means about, and it tells you about a particular command line tool, right? Just the same. So it's kind of like a short, description. Unlike the man page that gives you a lot of commands. I'm going to clear this right now. So these are some of the help commands that we have, right? And it's good to know them, and then you pick the one that works best for you. Because you can't always remember to use every single one of them. I personally don't, remember every single command, but I have, some of the basic ones I use. At the end of this session as well, I found out, I saw this xmind file, that carries basically a bunch of more commands. A very huge, mind map that contains a lot of commands, and they were structured, according to functionality. So it's at the bottom of this Notion page. I also dropped the link there, so you can click on it and it take you to that. I mean, it's wonderful, it's wonderful. So yeah, so the next one is touch. Touch is basically used to create files. So let's assume, and I'm going to be faster here, because I believe you understand. CD, back to the root directory. Now CD desktop. We're currently in the desktop. I want to create a file, and I'm going to say touch main.py, right? So I'm creating a Python file, and I want to check if this Python file has been created. You see, it's this is just a very simple. You don't always, you won't have this on your own machine, right? So I'm going to check if I have that file here, main.py, right? And now that we've seen the main.py, let's say you want to open this file from here. You can open this file using the process name of that text editor you want to use. So VS Code, of course, you do that with code and the name of the file, right? I would rather open this here with mate, and I would just main.py. So mate is a text editor. It's a fast text editor I love to use, for doing quick stuff. So you see we have that file opened up here, right? We have that file opened up here. As we proceed, we would also come back to, like create a file and also, read the details of this file directly from, from bash, from the command line, which is, our terminal. I would also show you probably how to edit, quick editing tips, like using Nano, because talking about Beam here might be very complex for you to grab. So let's proceed. So I was able to create a file using touch, right? So we use the touch to create a file. Yeah, some of you might ask, what if you want to create a folder or a directory instead of a regular file? We'll talk about that very soon. So we have CP. The CP command is used to copy. So we currently have, looking at ls, we currently have main.py in here. So let's assume you want to copy main.py into active dev. You want to copy the main.py into that particular folder. So it's quite simple because you can just say cp main.py, which is the name and the file you want to copy, and then you can put the location, active dev, slash. Yeah, so let's say we're copying it to active dev main or main.py. Let's see, can we do that? All right, so let's quickly go to the active dev and let's use our ls to see if we have the hello.py, and we do have hello.py. If the main.py had a content, right, had a quick, maybe like a very little code, it would show up here. So let's also try an example. Let's come up with a very quick example so you would understand that better. So I am currently back on the desktop. I'm going to clear this and I'm going to open main.py once again, right? So I have main.py opened up here, and we're going to quickly just say def hello, right? So this is just a very return hello world. So we have this simple method in here, this simple function, sorry. I'm going to close this now, and back here, I'm going to just simply say cp, I want to copy that file again, main.py, and let's take it back to active dev, but this time let's also just call it main.py. So I have copied the main.py file from my desktop into this folder, which is active dev folder. So if I go down to the active dev folder and I use the ls command to list storage, I would also see the main.py here. So let's preview what we have there by just simply opening it using mate text editor again, right? So now we're currently opening the main.py within the active dev folder, not the one on the desktop, right? So opening this, you see we still have the same function right inside that file, right? So we're able to copy this item. That is for copying items. We also have the MV, which is used to move, right? So we use this to move items. I think, yeah, MV. So I'm going to go back to the desktop. Let's go back to the desktop. Okay. Let us clear what we have here, and I believe you can still see my screen very well. Okay, so I'm going to use MV, and this time around, I am going to move the main.py into a different folder. So I would definitely love to see. So I have to press the tab key twice, to give me a list of all the folders and files I have on the desktop. And I'm going to move this into OSINT, Open Source Intelligence folder, which is the OSINT folder you see right here. So let me do that, and I'm going to say OSINT. So I'm just going to hit enter. Now we are still on the desktop. Let's do our ls. So looking closely, you see we no longer have main.py on the desktop, right? So let us go down to OSINT right now, and then ls. Now you see we have the main.py file inside this folder. Well, I don't want to leave it here, so I'm simply going to open this folder using the open command, right? And I'm using the dots because I want to open the folder itself, that current folder. So I want to delete it. I can delete this from the terminal, but we're going to get there, and I don't want to forget this file in here. So I'm going to remove it manually, from the using the GUI interface here. So let's come back here. Let's go back to the roots. Let us clear, and now we can proceed. So we've looked at CP, we've looked at MV. Let's talk about deleting files now. So we're going to start afresh again. I'm going to create a new file, this time a JavaScript file. So I'm going to say back to the desktop. We're currently on the desktop. Let's take a look at our files, and I'm going to say touch index.js. Now I have created a JavaScript file. So let's do ls. Now you see we have index.js, right? And I want us to delete this file, right? We have to delete this file. I don't want to have this file right here. In order to delete a file from the terminal, we basically say ROM, which is remove, and I'm going to point at that file, which is index.js. That is gone, right? So when we do ls, you see we no longer see that file right here. One thing you should understand about working with the terminal, you have to be very careful with what you delete, and I would explain that to you. So when you are working on the cloud and you're using the rm command, you have to note that there is no recycle bin for you to play around with. So let's assume we create another file, index.js. Now we say rm index.js. When you come down here, you see I have no item inside the recycle bin. I mean, definitely the bin. I'm using the term recycle bin because most of us are probably using a Windows machine. And let me also zoom in case you can see that well. So looking at it, you see it's still empty, right? So let's go back. All right. So coming back here, fine. So now we are back on the desktop. and we have been able to create a file. We've been able to remove that file, copy that file as well. The next thing we might consider right now is what if we don't want to create a file on the desktop? We want to create a folder and then put our file inside that folder. Well, it is there's a command for that, and we can do that by just simply first off, let's list what we have here. So you see we have a bunch of files and folders. We want to create a new folder this time around. Let's call it the bash project, right? So simply bash project. I'm going to say mkdir arrow, which stands for make directory, and we would say bash project, right? You see I'm using the underscore. Of course, you can use camel casing. I personally love snake cases. So now we have the bash project, and now by typing ls, you see we're able to locate the bash project right here. Okay, let's also go into the bash project by simply using the cd command, change directory, bash project, enter, and we are right inside that particular directory. Of course, we don't have any files, so when I run ls, you don't see anything show up. Let's create two files, one Python file and one JavaScript file. So I'm going to touch main.js, right? And it is possible to actually touch as many files as you want on a single command. So we can also say the index.py. I think so that is wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, but due to the naming conventions, index.js and main.py for the Python programmer. So yeah, let us list. Now you see we have two files, right? So we have the index.js file and the main.py file. Let us remove these files. I'm going to use the rm index.js main.py. Now let us preview with ls. There's nothing in there. What if you have two files, which is main.py and index.js, and then we want to go back to the desktop. So now we have a file. Let's use the file command to see what the bash project is. So the bash project is a directory. We want to remove the bash project, including the files inside the bash project, right? So if we do the rm bash project, you see it tells us this is a directory, right? So rm command tells us that the bash project is a directory. It's not a file, so you can't just run rm because you have things in there, and you need to be sure if you really want to take off the whole thing. If you're very sure, then you can just append the -r flag. So we call it a flag, or of course you can also refer to it as an argument. For example, -r, and we say bash project. So -r means recursive deletion, right? So recursive meaning we're deleting every single thing we have internally, in there. So -r basically stands for recursive delete. So delete the folder and the items. And if you check right now, you can't find the bash project, right? The bash project is no longer here, and the bash project is also not in our bin. So yeah, that is basically gone. All right, so that is it for removing files, creating new directories. We also have a command for removing directories, actually called the rmdir arrow, which is remove directory. I did not use that because most times you might find yourself working with the rm command. So I wanted to show you that you can actually use the recursive deletion to take off the folder and the files. But let's go ahead and create a new folder again with the same name. So make directory bash project with the underscore. Now we have bash project right here, and I'm going to use the rm. Let's create some files in there first. Okay, so let's go to the bash project, and I'm going to touch main.py. I think that's fine. Let's go back one step. ls. So you see we have the bash project, right? Good. So if we say rm dir arrow, and then we say bash project, so it's saying the directory is not empty, which is of course the same error we got at that time. So we have to also include the -r. So the -r here is saying illegal operation. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is to fetch and see the man page for this, or the help page for this. So let's do man rmdir. So this is going to tell us, let us take a look at this together. And so this is telling us remove all directories up to including, okay, so stopping at the first empty directory. So this is -p, but let's see if we have any other command. Remove directory entirely specified by a directory. Okay. So looking at the options now, it's saying each directory argument is treated as a path name. The V listing each directory as it is removed. Okay. Okay. So let us see. So I think basically this would only remove the directories, and it probably would not touch the files. So probably we might end up using the rm-r for this. And of course, I keep using the rm-r, but I'm also going to do a quick search, and instead of making assumptions. So let's try the arrow and the arrow. Let's do the dash. Let's see, that will just list. Sorry, I must have to go back here. So I might have to go back to this command and see. Okay. So this will remove this if it's empty. This would also let's try out the dash p. So I'm going to take this off. So I just close the man page. So let's do rmdir arrow dash p and bash project. So it says the same thing. So obviously we might end up using the rm dash arrow and the bash project. All right, so that works for us. So let's clear our screen. Yeah, you can also if you think there's a way to use the rm directory with a couple of flags for taking off. You can probably do a Google search and get that for us. Okay, so the next one I have on the list here is CAT, which I also refer to as a CAT, but basically it stands for concatenate, right? And it allows us to create single or multiple files or to view the content of the file. Most of us use this for viewing the content of that file. So a quick example is a quick example to this. I think before I proceed, I want to know how many people are following with this. I have 20 participants here. I want to know if if we are moving along together. You can follow the Notion file, of course. So what I want to do for me is drop an emoji in the chat, or drop a text saying hello, or an emoji. Just go ahead and drop that in the chat. Let's see if everyone is following. Okay. All right. Okay. So that was Edwin. All right. Good. So okay. So I see some of you are also raising your hand. Okay. Basically, that's fine. That's from Lily. Okay. Beautiful. All right. So let's proceed. So we're going to create a file right now. We're going to create a file on the desktop. I'm going to call this index.js. So I'm going to quickly say touch index.js. This is directly on the desktop, and I'm going to open up this file. I'm going to open up this file using mates. I would also show you, as I said earlier, I would show you how to edit this file directly from the terminal. But for now, we've not gotten there on our list, so let's just use the mate tool, which is the text editor. I'm going to write a very simple function, very simple. So we're going to have a function greet human, right? So we have return hello world. All right, beautiful. So I'm going to save this, and I hope there's no mistake there. Yeah. Okay. So now let's use the cat command, which is concatenate, and this would this would preview, or this would give us the content inside that file. So I'm going to simply say index, and you see it's able to give us the content. Now, when do you need to use the cat command? Most times you necessarily don't want to open a file, right? Most times you want to just preview and probably see what the function looks like. And I do this a lot, right? I do this a lot. So let's assume I have a file. Someone calls me, oh Marv, can I get a function to perform this kind of operation, right? So I'm going to simply navigate into my desktop, my source code. What language do you use? And the person says, okay, I use Rust. Okay, so let's quickly check if I have. Yeah, of course, I have a lot of things in Rust here. And this is just an example, forget about the code whatsoever. We're just trying to view something. So I'm going to check working with Diesel. So I have a simple Diesel example here with Postgres. So let's say Postgres. You see the way I'm moving from one folder to another. And, inside this place, I have multiple folders. Again, these are still folders. So I have all about insert. So I'm going to say cd all about, okay, insert. All right. So right now I am inside this place and I still have more files. So let's assume I want to check I want to see the packages that I used in writing this code. All I can do is say, cat this particular file or concatenate this file. So you see, it gives me those packages, and I can tell the person, oh, I'm using Diesel version 1.40, with a feature of Postgres, right? And yeah, so this example was implemented by the author of Diesel library itself. So I can also cd back one step. Let's check out the advanced blog CLI, and in here I can say cd src, right? So I'm still moving it all into different files, without having to open this. It's fun, and this is basically how you work on the cloud. So you can see it gives us this emoji because I'm currently using, this is Rust, right? So auth.ros, I can just simply cut the entire authentication file and preview the content, straight from this environment. So you see the content of the functions, and I can share this with the person I'm trying to probably share this with. I can take a screenshot, or I can just copy and paste. I did not have to really open this, right? So I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to go back to my home directory. Let's clear once again. And yeah, so that's how you use the cat command, or the concatenate command. Yeah, so the next command we have here is the echo command, and the echo command, it looks very simple, but it has a lot of functionalities, especially when you're trying to set things like environmental variables. We won't be doing anything complex here, but I'm going to show you that basically you can use the echo command to print out stuff. For example, hello world from Lagos, Nigeria, right? And you see we're able to just print it out. This is not necessarily important, but when does this become important? So let's say I want to know what is the name of this user, right? What's the name of my user? So I can say hello echo user, and you see it gives me the name of the user, Brain. Okay, so I can also echo a bunch of things. Most things you might want to use echo for are probably private stuff, like environmental variables and all that. So let's go to the desktop, and I'm going to touch a simple file here, main.js, right? Then I'm going to use echo, and I'm going to echo console.log new file, right? This is just an example, and I'm going to put this into main.js. So now let us cut main.js, right? So you see we have console.log main.js. So you can use the echo for performing nice operations like this. So we usually use it for even like appending environmental variables into the .env files. For those of you that know what that is, but basically it has more functionalities, and of course you can read up the functionalities from the man page, right? Man echo, and then you see a lot of things you have in here. Yeah, but let's quickly close this for now. Let's clear this, and we'll proceed. I'll show you some examples, when doing bash. So basically, we're still learning those basic commands needed for bash, and that is why we've also decided to see that we can, create like an additional course for this after this session later on. Okay, so yeah, so for example, let's assume you have a file. You have a file and you want to read that file, but you don't want to use cat because you probably want to be able to scroll, do some kind of some kind of navigation, some kind of navigation things. You want to be able to navigate, by scrolling in pages, or by lines. You can actually do that using the more and less command. So using the more command, you are able to view that content in text in that text file, or in that particular file, one at a time, one screen at a time. I'm thinking, okay, so how do I show you? Okay, so a quick example. Let's see. Let's look for a file. I'm going to look for a file here. So let's see. I am currently on my desktop. I'm going to open up the the active. Let's see. Okay, let's open up the source code. I have a bunch of stuff here, so I'm going to open up IndexDB. So I think that's great. So IndexDB, and so we have localdb.js. So let us do more of localdb.js. All right. So as you can see, we're able to move these stuffs, and we're viewing these stuffs, like per page. This is basically because we're using more, right? So you see the way I moved just from the top of the page down to the bottom of the page. You can use enter key to navigate per line. All right, this is using the more function. You can also use lex. So we can say less local DB, the same stuff, .js. Using local DB, I mean, obviously the same, very similar. I think the major difference here is this would show the contents on that screen one at a time, and for the more command, you are actually so I think I would have to probably take this down a little bit so I would explain this better. All right. So if you look closely, you see that you can actually use the enter key to view the stuffs one line at a time because we are just scrolling. So basically, this is me scrolling, right? And we can also use the arrow keys, to navigate and to move this, like from the top. Yeah. So now I'm going to use. This is very small. I know that. So I'm just trying to. Yeah, let's use local DB.js. All right. So using this, you see that I'm trying to scroll. It's taking me probably down to the end of this page. So there are more to this, of course, and it is possible to just use the manual, right? Use the manual to also learn more about this. Let's see the difference between using the more and also using cat because I think it's quite important that we're able to identify this right now. Before I zoom this back. So I'm going to say local DB. So I have, okay, so let's do cat local DB.js. Yeah, so this just printed out the whole thing and it exited automatically, which means we have to scroll with our cursor, which I am doing right now. I'm currently scrolling with our cursor because if I try to scroll using the arrow keys, you see what I'm having here, right? You see it's just like giving me the commands because it already left the scroll environment, or it already left the file. It just like presented everything to you and left the file. Yeah, so someone is saying are more and less similar to cats. Yeah, so they are quite similar in such a sense that it shows you the detail, but the cat command automatically leaves that file, so you have to scroll, which is what I'm doing right now using my cursor. I'm scrolling using the cursor, not using the arrow keys. Unfortunately, if you are on the cloud, working on a real a Linux environment on the cloud, there's no cursor, right? There's no cursor for you, except maybe you're trying to do some navigation inside the file, but it's not regarded as a cursor. Like moving your cursor won't work. You have to basically do everything from the keyboard, right? And yeah, working with the keyboard is actually faster than working with the cursor or working with your mouse. Trust me. But of course, you'll get to learn that with time. Okay, so we also have Nano, which is basically a text editor, and yeah, you can use the Nano tool to edit files, right? So let me zoom in again, and I hope you can see this clearly now. So this is just a very simple snippet of working with IndexedDB on your browser using local DB. So what I'm going to do right now is I would love to edit this particular file or this particular document using Nano. Nano is a default text editor. We also have Vim, VI. I don't want us to go into that because of the complexity, but we have a lot of videos teaching people how to use Vim. Still, I think it's sort of difficult, and I think the best way to learn Vim is to use Vim while you are learning it. Right? That's the only way I would have been able to learn Vim, years back. But to be honest, I think I would agree when people say it's difficult to learn because it is actually, remembering these things is not easy. So let's use Nano right now. And I'm going to edit this file, localdb.js. So now we are currently in a very simple, text editor on the terminal. If you have any experience working with things like Emacs or Vim, then you can also understand that you have a very powerful tool here that looks really simple, and it does not really provide you with a lot of help or assistance like what VS Code. So someone is asking, is VI the same thing as Vim? Yeah, so Vim basically is an improved version of VI. So Vim stands for VI improved. It's an improved version of VI that gives you some kind of additional configuration settings and those kind of stuff. And people keep working on the VI toolings. Yeah, I call it toolings because you have a lot of other tools that you can use along with VI. We have NeoVim. I use NeoVim most times because the configuration is even more. It's it's great to use a new Vim. So it's basically the same thing. Vim is just an improved version of VI, and everything still uses VI behind the scenes. So yeah, so right now this is Nano. We can edit, we can move our cursor, we can move our we can move around using the arrow keys, right? Which is basically what I'm doing. Yeah, and we can also type in here. So I would not love to. I'm going to quit this. I'm going to quit this right now, and this, yeah, using Control X. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go back to the desktop, and I'm going to create a new file. So let's touch main.js, right? Then let's open main.js, right? And now we are inside. Oh, okay. So we already have a file called main.js. So let's go ahead and edit this file. We're going to write a very simple function, very simple function. So I'm going to say function call mom, for example, and I'm going to return. So let's return. Let's just say yeah, correct. Okay. So let's assume this is the number, right? So I'm going to return this and then close this right now. So I'm going to save, and of course, to save, I'm going to use a Control O, and it's telling me, do you want to write the name of this file using this? So I'm going to just hit enter because this is the name of our file. All right, so this has been saved. So Control O, then enter to save, and now I'm going to quit this using Control X. And let's just run this using Node, right? So I'm going to run Node main.js, and yeah. So the problem, we did not call the function. Okay, sorry about that. We did not call the function. So someone is saying, I think Vim is the editor that pops up when one runs git commit. Yeah. So that's VI, right? That is not. That's not. Let's call it. That is VI. So if you don't commit to the message, it's asking you to enter. But that was kind of like built into Git, Git itself. So yeah. So I think it's. I've not really done that research to know if they are using VI, under the hood. But I think it also works like VI because you have to work with those commands. Yeah, but personally, I most times don't forget to add my commit message. But I believe we don't have that time to try it. You can try it and tell me if you think it is Vim, or you can do your basic Google search, and also inform me on that. Yeah, so let's go ahead and edit this again. Nano main, and in here we're going to call this, so call mom. Then we're going to save again, Control O, right? Control O, we save, and then we leave this environment using Control X. Yeah, then I'm going to quickly just call this again. Okay, so okay, another mistake. So you see, that's the thing here. There's no mistake with the code, but the functionality of the code is not expected to log anything, right? We did not log anything. So someone is saying, does VI work the same as Emacs? No, so I won't say the same because Emacs is a kind of a whole collection of command line tools. You can basically do a lot of things with Emacs. As a matter of fact, GNU Emacs is almost considered an operating system because you can do a lot of things with it. I think VI is just basically a text editor. We have the Emacs text editor, but there are more functionalities that are almost making it look complex or even more complex in terms of the learning curve. So let's go back in here, nano main, and right now we're going to log this, right? So this is basically what you do so that you can have the outputs logged on our terminal. So let's save this with Control O. Once again, let's quit this and let us run node main.js. So finally we have dialing the number. So this is basically me, working, editing stuff inside the terminal, and this is kind of fast, especially when I receive a lot of messages saying, I'm trying to do this, it's not working. Instead of creating a new file, I receive a lot of messages like that from the server, or maybe from the mentoring sessions I have with a couple of folks in Ghana or Kenya or Rwanda. So basically what I do, instead of opening up a new environment and spending a lot of time digging into code, I just create a new file, open that up using VI or Nano, edit the text, test it right here, and then take a screenshot once I'm done. Which is quite easy on the Mac. You can just quickly take a screenshot, like I did right now using a shortcut, and I can just share this with the person that have that complaint or so. Yeah, so basically, working with Nano is quite interesting. So I think you should check it out as well. Then we have the sudo command. I do make a mistake of calling it sudo at times, but it's pronounced as sudo, right? Which means super user do. And this command is actually used for running or for executing a bunch of other commands as a root user, right? So when I mean as a root user, even if you are not the root user, it executes as root, which means you're probably part of the root or admin group, right? So that is a more complex things around permissions and group. But basically, when you try to execute some commands and you don't have permission to execute them, executing that command as a sudo user will definitely execute. Except you don't have the sudo permission, right? Or sudo permission. Okay, so we'll dive deep into working with sudo and Linux permissions. We're supposed to talk about Linux permissions on this call, but time would definitely not permit us to. Though we have we're coming up with a permissions where you learn how to understand things like ch mode, chown or CHOWN, which is change ownership. Ch mode, which means a change. I think it's change mode, changing the mode of the file. These are the complex parts, of you need to understand this stuff when working with the cloud and or when working on any VPC at all. Yeah, so I would have a session where we'll talk about that in detail, based on the feedback we get from this particular session, anyways. Yeah, ch mode and ch OWN, they are for permissions, for file permissions. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so we also have the next command su, which is just a way to probably log into a different user. So let's assume we have a new user here. I don't want to add a user here, but there are ways to add users. If you're using Linux, so you can actually just simply add a user, attach the user to the admin user group, and then access the user using su. So I can log in as a different user from my own account or from my own user account, right? And you can do that using the su, because that is a super user permission or super user kind of thing. Yeah, so you're able to log into a different account, see what they have in their file directories or in their account, play around with a couple of things there. It's very possible to do that, using su. Yeah, so some of these commands are not meant for this session, like in terms of going into the detail, because it's better I show you this with a practical, where we have to log into a server, and of course we're already preparing for that. I would give you a brief, after this session on how we'll go about that. Okay, so the next one is users, which would basically show you all the users you have on your machine. Currently, I have just one user, Brain. But if you have multiple users, when you type in the users command, it gives you all those users, right? We also have ID, which basically gives you a lot of details about your username and all those stuff. So yeah, I don't mind showing you that detail here, because I usually change laptops a lot, right? Not necessarily, yeah, but it gives you a bunch of details that you need to know. I'm going to take that off real quick. And of course, probably, I mean, it doesn't matter. This session is being recorded, so you can always try that from your end. Yeah, and it gets to give you like a lot of information about your system. If you're also on a Mac, on a Linux machine, I think we also have ipconfig. I think it's ifconfig. It's not on this list, right? But I think it will be important for you guys. So ifconfig gives you a bunch of details about your IP and all that. So I'm going to clear that. We'll talk about that as well when we are working with any cloud service. So if you have any other question as I'm progressing, please ask your questions. We are probably way beyond time already. Okay, so check out the watch command, which is basically used to watch other. Oh, okay. So I don't have that here. Okay, so the watch command would work on a Mac on a Linux machine. Yeah, so that's why I told you. A Mac is not a Mac actually runs on Unix, right? But a Mac is not Linux. So most of these commands have. I'm teaching you these commands based on what you would use on a Linux. Sorry about that. So based on what you use on a Linux machine, because when working on the cloud, basically you're going to be using the Linux machine. All right. So yeah, so you can use the watch command, to watch. Yeah, you can use the watch command to actually watch the changes happening on a particular command, and you can set the timer for this. But by default, I think it's every 2 seconds. I think most of you might have also used the watch command in a bunch of programming languages, but maybe working with Node.js, you can use watch and all that. So it's the same concept, not exactly the same command, but that concept was gotten from the default watch command you have on the MacBook, or you have on Unix. Sorry, keep making that mistake. All right, so we have the kill all command, and first off, I'm going to open mates. Let's open mates. So I have mates opened up right here. Using the kill all command, you are basically trying to kill a particular command, and you can use the command's PID or the process name. I'm going to use the process name here, which is mates. It says no matching processes belonging to. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I think let's try VS Code. I mean, that's weird for me to say, but let's try. So let's try kill all code. Oh wow, okay. So I think I'll probably have to run this, except I'm making a mistake somewhere. So this is going to kill all the processes belonging to that particular command. Okay. So let's check out the man page. Yeah, so let's check out the man page. So it says kill all utility kills processes selected by name as opposed to the selection by PID, okay, as done by kill. So by default, it will send a term signal to all processes with a real UID identical to the caller. Okay, so now my assumption is the process name for code, for VS Code, which is expected to be code. So let's see, be more verbose about, okay, so /d, -d, -e. Okay, so list all the names of the available signals. Okay, let's do that. So let's do that. I'm going to open a new by just pressing Ctrl N. I'm going to go into Bash because I was by default I go into Fish, which is a different shell. Yeah, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run kill all -l, and this is saying okay, so kill all. What if I have like Chrome opened? Oh, that's weird. Okay, so if you're using the Linux machine, go ahead and try this, and I want to be sure if this is I believe I am not executing this command very well, right? I definitely believe I'm not doing that very well. So I'm also going to probably get back to this command, but let's see. So I'm quickly looking up, my second screen, trying to figure out, where I'm doing that wrongly. And yeah, you can use the kill command, but this is supposed to work with the process name. So I think I think the process name I am trying to refer to probably are wrong, right? Because I can see a lot of comments, using the same command and it works. So if you try it on your MacBook or your Linux machine or your Windows system and it works, kindly let me know in the chats. Kindly let me know in the chats. All right, so kindly let me know in the chat because it doesn't seem to work at the moment here. But basically, I think that's what you should do. Kill all the name of the process, such as mate or code, or Chrome. Yeah, I think that should. Yeah, I think that should do the job. All right, so let's see if I can also just check out the name of the process from here. So let's see if I have. So I have htop running here. So these are the PIDs. For example, the files were running like Notion. You see, I have Notion running Visual Studio Code. That's the PID of. Let's go back again. So Visual Studio Code has a PID of, and that moves really fast. So let's do that again. Probably I might want to reduce this so I can see it very well. So we have a PID Chrome, that's I think 684, I guess. But I'm not going to run that. But using the kill command, you can actually use kill with the PID. I'm not going to run that. I don't want to kill my Chrome browser. Killing it does not mean it's. you can always spawn up the application again. And kill all is expected to actually kill. So let's see, kill all htop. So yeah, so that worked for htop. I just killed the htop process that was running here. So I have htop again, and I say kill all htop, and that kills htop. Okay, so probably the process name for VS Code is what is what I'm not calling right. So please try it on your end and let me know. Okay, okay, so let's look at the next one, which is basically exit. And I also wrote on the comment that you can use Control D, to actually exit. So you see, I was able to exit I was in Bash, right? So I just exited out of Bash, and this took me back to the default that I had there. Mark, can you please stop drawing on the screen? I see people really love to explore. Yeah, so stop drawing on the screen, please. And I think I should be able to disable that. Can I? Okay, so the host, please, if you can disable that, please do that. Stop drawing on the screen when you're on a session like this. Let's be professional, please. Okay, so I currently exited out of Bash. I'm currently inside. I'm currently inside curiosity is an orphan. Okay, so please stop that. Okay. Yeah. So using the Control D again, I can quit that environment. So when I first quit using Control D, it takes me out of the current shell. I press Control D again, it takes me out of that particular shell again, which is Bash, and the final Control D there takes me out of the of the terminal completely. So let's open up the terminal again. Let us zoom in. And let's also export this. So yeah, using Control D, we can quit this, right? You see, I was able to leave the environment once because I did not open Bash up, right? So yeah, so basically, you can use Control D, you can use exit, right? So that's another easy command to use, Control D or exit. Okay, so I'm currently using, by default, I use ZSH. But I also configured this to work with fish, right? So we have a bunch of shells. We have fish, ZSH, but right now let's go into Bash. Let's clear this, and yeah. So looking at this, you see I used clear, but when I scroll, I still have those stuffs there. So I can use reset, to take off the whole thing and reset this. I'm going to do that again first off after. Yeah. So let's open this up again. Let's say ls, right? And let's do the reset. So you see that I was able to reset this. I can't scroll even if I tried, so I can't scroll with my mouse as well or with my touchpad. And yeah, so what I want to do is using the link in that file, click on the Linux commands, and you're going to see a mind map, which I'm going to share with you on my Chrome screen right now. So we have this xmind file. I actually shared this again in case if the initial person that shared this, take the link off. So I downloaded this and shared it again, but I did not create this file myself. So I got it online. Of course, there was no name attached to it, but yeah, you can always explore with this. So we have ways to check stuff, like using SSH. You see that there are so many commands that we can't cover, all the commands in Unix because they are quite much. And this is just a way. You see, you can create files using Emacs, Spin, a bunch of tools. You can check statistics of some files or directories. You can use Torch. So they are grouped into different categories. File creation and editing, file properties, file location. We've used some of this, right? We have file text manipulation. We have compression and packaging. So they are amazing stuff, right? You need to know most of them, not all of them. You don't need to remember them, just have a reference like what I've shared with you here. You can basically do a lot of things, performing calculations, using echo and printf, printing out stuff to the screen, instant messaging, opening up a web browser, sending emails, opening opening up some of these tools like Thunderbird and the rest of them, well, every single one of them would not work on your specific distribution, right? But it might work on another distribution. So go ahead and play around, but be careful. Don't play around with your core file system directories. Don't play around with your the core files that are making your system work. So if you notice, when I open up my terminal, I always navigate to the desktop. Using CD desktop before creating files, or don't create files in your root directory. You can, but don't do that, because you might mistakenly delete your entire boot files and all that. And yeah, of course, I've made such mistakes so many times, and I don't want you to make. So it's better to always try to follow those simple rules. Don't create stuff or play around with stuff in your root directory. Always navigate to a particular folder, whether it's a desktop or any other folder you want to do that. When we have a different session, we are going to be playing around with creating servers. For example, we'll create some servers on Linode. We would also test those servers and do a bunch of things using Bash. Then I would also probably introduce you to the scripting angle of working with Bash. Using those commands to actually write real scripts. And I have a few examples that I already created for you. So I think we have Bash scripting right here. So let's open up. Let's open this up in Mates, right? Bash scripting. So you see, we have a bunch of things that we can do with Bash, right? For application testing, for arithmetic operations, for arrays, for working with conditionals such as your if-else statements and all that. Performing input output operations, writing functions. So basically, you're a programmer working with Python, JavaScript. You can write scripts that can execute, when you run them, and they can perform other things. So we can write a Bash script to run a Python script, right? On the cloud, I don't run Node. I don't run Python. Instead, I use PM2 to run those things. So PM2 is a tool that I use in monitoring servers. So you see, I have PM2 monitoring Comrade bot. For those of you on Discord, we have Comrade bot deployed on a different server, and we are on AWS basically, and we have Comrade 2, monitoring the performance and the health of this of the Comrade bot. So as we proceed, as we learn together, these are stuff that we would learn. Probably not always in detail, but at least what you need, to get started. So someone is asking, does Fish work on Windows? Yeah, I think it works on the environment you're currently using it in. If you're using the WSL option where you can, like extend, bring out that Linux kernel functionality on your machine, yes, you can. And I think if I should go ahead and open up the link shared with you, so I think that's the wrong one. So on Notion, which I'm trying to get now, well, we lost it already. Okay, yeah. So if I should open up the initial blog, you see that there is a way to set that up. Yeah. So from this blog, you can actually set up Ubuntu directly on your Windows. So please go ahead and check that. Okay, and I'm sure you should be able to do that. Or my own advice is set up a very simple Linux machine for just like $5 per month, or probably $5 per month. Or you can try AWS Light Sale, where you can get a machine for just $3 per month, and you can rock with that. So basically, I think that is all we have. Go through the page, the link shared with you. So join the server, join us during the cohort program, and learn a lot of stuff around backend, frontend, and UI UX. This month we're entering, we're also going to be kicking off with product management. So if you know anyone interested in learning product management, feel free, invite them to the server so they can learn from the opportunity as well, absolutely for free. Remember. Okay, so you can also visit our website, of course, topuniverse.org. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my website, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I think I don't really talk much about Twitter, but my followers the level of followership, or what do they call it, on Twitter, it's really disappointing. I think I have just 70 something followers, but I would also try as much as possible to move some of my micro training materials to Twitter because I've not been very active on Twitter. And yeah, so if you want to get the free coupon for the JetBrains 6 months JetBrains usage, yeah, just go ahead on the Discord server. Just send a message to the Comrade bot saying get coupon with your email address, and before the new week runs out, we'll definitely send it across. I mean, probably by Monday or Tuesday, we'll send across the new coupon codes to each person, to the first 100 persons, that registers at least before the end of today. Yeah, so make sure you do that on time. Share with your friends. Would love to have you guys on Discord. Invite more people, and hopefully we can build a great community where we get to learn and work together. All right, so have a wonderful day. So do we have any other thing, Emanuela, Abaka?
Yeah, no, I think the other things will communicate during the community hour tomorrow.
Okay. So yeah, ensure you join the community hour tomorrow by 12 p.m. West African time. So we have a couple of things to pass on to you. I would love to really see you on the chat tomorrow. So have a wonderful evening and enjoy the rest of the day. Edwin, okay. Good night. Bye.